Hello, so I'm going to go through how Cyberdesk works. So let's start with the Cyberdriver. This is what we run on any Windows machine you want to run an automation on. We support Mac 2 actually. And this is what executes the actual commands. So how you would get it is you would just run the script. This basically installs it from our GitHub releases. It's actually from an open source repo. Our Cyberdriver is completely open source. So this is what you'll install on the Windows machine. So you add it to path, and once you've added it to path, to activate it, all you have to do is run this command. And then it's running through um, it sets up a reverse tunnel with our backend and runs as long as the machine is on. If it logs off or shuts down, then it turns off and you have to boot it back up whenever the machine comes back on. So once it's running, it runs in a PowerShell terminal. And as you can see, this one has been receiving commands to click, take screenshots, and so on. Awesome. So now that the Cyberdriver is running, you should be able to detect it in the desktop tab from your dashboard. So I have two machines connected right now. You can have as many machines connected as you'd like. So when you have a machine connected, then you should start like designing and setting up workflows. So let's take a look at this workflow, for example, creating a patient in Open Dental. It's a dental clinic desktop application. So a workflow is simply an English description of the text of the steps that you need to do to complete this task. So you can see there's inputs here, the patient information for the patient that we want to create, and you just simply explain to the agent what to do. So once you explain what to do, the agent will go in and start performing the task to learn the steps required to do it. So that this agent has already learned the tasks. As you can see, it's memorized the tasks to complete it, the steps to complete the task. First, open the Windows button and then wait for it to load, and then you can type in Open Dental. As you can see, Open Dental has been typed, and then it's going to click on it. We'll press enter and so on. So it's outlined all the steps required so that when it runs through production, it's running deterministically through this trajectory that it memorized. So there's a thing called cache detection that we do in production when it's running in production. And what that means is it's going to look at the live screen and compare it against the memorized screen. So in this case, we switched on cache detection for this step. So in production, I'm going to show you a production run actually. So in this production run, the agent just goes through the cached actions. It's just going off of memory. I click here, I wait, I type, and so on. And then when it comes down to a cache detection step, it's going to compare the live screen. This is the live screen from the memorized screen. And this was the screen when it learned the process. So it's going to compare them and see, is there anything different about the conditions on the live screen that prevent me from proceeding with the memorized action? In this case, the memorized action is clicking on this box. So after evaluating the live screen, is there anything preventing me from clicking on this box to proceed with the next step? And in this case, the next step is to click on first name and so on. And if it identifies that something is preventing it from doing that, then it falls back on the computer use agent. And the computer use agent is given the context of what happened up to that point and what it needs to do to complete the task. So that's what cache detection does. And say, for example, that you want to select an item from a list of options. You can't just memorize a set of coordinates. The agent can't just memorize one set of coordinates every time it wants to select the billing type. It actually needs to evaluate the screen, think about what option do I want? Do I want standard, insured, uninsured, friends and family? And based on that, it decides which option to select. So this is what we call a focused action. So that then in production, when it's running, again, it runs deterministically through all the steps. But then when it finally arrives at a focused action, it engages the agent. So the agent then takes a screenshot and then starts to take the steps from there. And then once the agent has completed the task, then it goes back to, well, I guess it still has, I think it was just confirming that it selected the right option. Once it's completed it, it identifies it to completed the task successfully, then it proceeds with the rest of the task. So this is what focus actions are, and there's actually several other tools that the agent has. They're all outlined in our docs. And as you can see here, so you can use it to select an item from a list of options. You can use it to extract information from any given part of the process. So once you extract it, the agent will save it to its own little like clipboard. And you can actually identify an output schema so that when the run is completed, it returns the information that you want. So you can output schema identify, for example, that you want total amount, invoice number, and due date. So when the agent extracts that information during the run, at the end of the run, that information will be returned. And you can also mark files for export. If you want to export a file from the desktop, you would just tell the agent, you mark this particular file, this path for export, and it will export it at the end of the run. And you could do the same thing with screenshots. And you just tell it in the prompt when you're describing the process. It was this prompt. And then it will mark that screenshot for extraction or exporting. You can ask the agent to do terminal commands as well. You just ask it to use execute terminal command and so on. And finally, you would declare the task as failed if something is not going as you would expect it to, or the agent encounters some sensitive situations that you do not want it to interact with. For example, account is locked or invalid credentials after attempting to log in. Use declare task as failed to terminate the workflow. You decide how you want to scope this, but you have that tool available. And obviously, we have the SDK here as well. So everything that was actually available in the dashboard in terms of running workflows and viewing trajectories and viewing the runs, everything powering this dashboard is actually available in the same SDK that you will be using when you're using Cyberdesk. And it's available in TypeScript and Python, and how to use it is in our docs. So this is Cyberdesk. If you have any questions, please do reach out. We'd be happy to talk more.